As an adult guitarist, you probably have different goals than you did as a kid. So why learn like a kid? You don't need to know everything. You need to learn how to play and have fun. And you want to do it as efficiently as possible because you don't have endless hours to practice. Everything you need to learn about playing jazz guitar can be learned in the context of learning tunes, and it'll get you where you want to go a lot sooner. But before we start learning tunes, there's one thing you need to be doing first: listening. You need to get the sound of jazz in your ear. Back when jazz was popular, it used to be everywhere, and so you heard it all the time. But now you have to make an effort. There are a lot of subtleties and nuances that you just can only pick up by listening. So make it your background music and try to make sure you're listening every day. So now we're ready to learn a tune. But don't open the fake book. We're going to start by learning the melody of the tune by ear. I use a method called MSP. Memorize, sing, play. It'll help connect the hand and the ear, and it'll pay other dividends down the road. You'll start by creating a playlist with at least 3 versions. Include a vocal version if you can find one. So now listen to your playlist and make sure this is active listening. You shouldn't be doing anything else while you're listening to the song, because your goal is to memorize the melody. You're going to sing it and then interpret it however you choose. And once you do that, you're going to try to find it on the guitar. If you can sing it, it'll be a lot easier because you don't have to be pressing rewind and play all the time, and you can sing it at whatever tempo you want. And also, you can kind of tell what your voice does. You can tell whether it went up or down and whether it's gone by step or by leap. And so that'll make it a lot easier for you to find the notes that you need. The song's going to often be in one position to start. So like if we were doing something with Autumn Leaves, maybe we'd play. But as you start to hear the patterns, you might want to take advantage of the guitar's design. You can see that's the same idea starting on a different note, and that's called a sequence. So you could play it like this. Not only does that make it a little easier to remember, it also reveals some things about the song that you don't really get when you're playing in position. Now, you may run into some parts that are a little challenging. In Take the A Train, it starts out fairly simply. But then it goes da da ba da ba da ba da ba da da. Okay? That's going to take a little bit of practice, and you're actually probably going to need to think about the fingering too, because trying to get from here to here is a little tricky. So I'm going to use my 4th finger. And so what you do is you work out that fingering, and then you practice it for 5 minutes. Start out as slow as you have to play it absolutely perfectly, and then gradually speed it up. And you'll learn it fairly quickly this way. So that is the general approach to working on your technique. Okay? When you have a challenging part in the song, practice it for 5 minutes. Same thing with scales. Okay? Now, this song, Take the A Train, is all in the key of C. There's a couple of chords that are outside of the key, but it's all in the key of C. So you would practice the key of C, and I use 4 different positions. You can use 5 if you like the cage system. And if you practice that for 5 minutes straight, you're going to play it quite a few times. Okay? And then you can go on the next day. You can either do that same pattern again or go on again, but only for about 5 minutes, 10 at the most. Okay? If you do that and you stay really focused, it will pay dividends really quickly. Now let's look at the chords. We're going to use a variation on the MSP method. You're going to listen to the song and you're going to try to hear the root of each chord. Sometimes that'll be easy, like on Latin tunes, you pretty much can expect the bass player to be playing the root on the downbeat. But in a walking bass, it may or may not be there. So you're going to try to do it the best you can at first, and it's going to be kind of tough. And if you need to check a fake book, well, you have my permission. But once you've found the roots, You're going to play and sing the roots from memory. Don't read them. So if we were going to do Autumn Leaves, we'd start here. Do, and then do, 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 do. Okay? And then, again, by doing this, we're connecting the fingers and the hand. So next, we want to identify the chords. It's actually a little easier than you might think because most of them are going to be diatonic. So that's what you try on each root. So the first chord is A, which is the fourth note, and a 4 chord in E minor would be a minor 7th chord. That sounds about right. Then the flat 7 would be a G7 chord. That's okay too. 3 major 7 sounds pretty good. 6 major 7 sounds pretty good. C major 7. F sharp minor 7 flat 5 sounds pretty good. And then when we get to the B chord, if it was natural minor, it would be B minor 7. But because it's a minor key, it actually should be a dominant 7th chord. And in fact, it is. And then when we get back to 1, we have an E minor 7. So all of these chords are diatonic. If you find a chord that isn't diatonic, most likely it's going to be a dominant 7th chord. But try 1 or 2 chords and don't, get too frustrated with it. If you can't get it, use a fake book. And the next time you hear that progression, you'll get it. Now that you know the chords, let's work them out. We'll start by using shell voicings. Shell voicings are the root, the 3rd, and the 7th of the chord, and played on the lower 4 strings. Okay? If you're not familiar with them, you want to check out this video. Play just a basic rhythm. Okay? Start with, if you're playing swing, it'll be just simply a 4-beat. If you're playing Latin, I use the down, down, up, up, down, down as my basic root. Now, once you can play all of the chords in your song, you also want to be able to play them without the roots. And all you need to do is you can finger it, but just play the 3rd and 4th strings. When you have a bass player, it's better to play just that. They don't want you down in that range. And when you're a pianist, that's about all you can do. So you don't need to worry about the notes up in the top 2 strings. But the good news is that if you know the 3rds and the 7ths, it's going to help your soloing. Now let's look at soloing. The first thing to understand is that scales are a framework, not a cage. All 12 notes are always available. Some just require a little bit more care than others. So you can use a major scale, natural minor scale, or even a pentatonic scale as your framework, and then work in other notes as they're needed. The most important thing, though, is style and groove. And you'll get a lot of that from the listening you're doing. But you want to make sure that your articulations and the way you're playing the notes makes sense in a jazz style. And you want to make sure that you're locked into the time. If you don't play with good time, it doesn't really matter how good your notes are going to be. The other thing that you want to keep considering is phrasing. So you have to leave space. And you can get a lot of that from the fact that you've memorized the melody. And that kind of brings us to the next point, is that you should actually play the song and not the changes. Nobody really wants to hear you do this. It'll sound a whole lot better if you work some of the song into your solo. So I hope by now you're starting to see that jazz guitar isn't really as complicated as you might have thought. But of course, you do need to practice. But it needs to be efficient, and I'm willing to bet that many of you are not practicing the right things or the right way. And that's why I'm offering a free personalized practice plan. You'll start making more progress in a lot less time. You click the link down below and sign up for a 30-minute call with me. We'll chat, I'll listen to you play, and I'll deliver a learning plan just for you. This is what I did for over 30 years as a college professor. It's a limited time offer, so don't miss out. Now, I haven't mentioned music theory yet, but that's because you don't really need a lot of it. You can learn it in the context of the songs, and really the things that you need to know are the keys. You need to know the diatonic chords and conversely non-diatonic chords, and you need to know how to spell the chords. Won't hurt to know tensions and intervals, but they're probably not that essential. So when you start a song, identify the key, identify the chords, whether they're diatonic or non-diatonic, and then practice spelling them. And when you practice spelling them, play them. So A minor 7, G7, C major 7, and so on and so forth. And you start learning your arpeggios that way, but it's more that you learn how to spell the chords and, again, are connecting the ear, the fingers, and now a little bit of the head. And so now, if you're ready to get started, pick a simple tune and let's start working on it. The first time, it's going to probably take you about a month to really get it down because you're going to be learning the process as well as learning the tune. But don't worry too much about that because Bill Evans told us it's better to spend 24 hours on one tune than 1 hour on 24 tunes. Once you have that tune down, then start learning other tunes. And you don't have to master each one before learning a new one. Just learn it well enough so that you can practice it without having to relearn it. So there's also a few don'ts that we have to consider. First, don't start with really hard tunes. Tunes that change keys a lot or have unusual changes are not for beginners. There are lots of great tunes that have only one key and a few notes maybe outside of the key. Start there. Next, don't practice scales and exercises endlessly. It's an easy trap to fall into because it's kind of easy to measure your progress there, but it doesn't really translate it necessarily into better playing. Your time would be much better spent working on your tunes. So these last two are about your head. First, don't worry about what others say about your playing, unless it's a teacher or a mentor. Musicians who criticize other musicians are really just working out their own insecurities. And lastly, don't be too hard on yourself either. When you play, do the best you can. And when you're done playing, walk away knowing that you did the best you could, and also knowing what you need to work on to make it better. Now, if you follow this method, you should, at the end of 6 months, have about 10 tunes that you know really well. And you'll be able to handle a lot of other tunes using what you've learned. The good news is it just gets easier to add tunes to your repertoire. For me, the process takes 1 or 2 days. And, of course, I continue to practice it until I have it down, though. So thanks for watching. Please like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, please leave a comment and tell me what you think of this method, and if you try it, let me know how it works for you. And of course, the only stupid question is the one that isn't asked. See you next time.